Good afternoon, everyone. I was expecting a little bit more film here, but we'll just get started. My name is Pratik Patel, and I'm going to talk about how to write bad Java for a little while here. I'm a Java champion based out of Atlanta. You may have read one of the books I've written over the years, and I help with the Atlanta Java User Group and another fine conference, a community conference in Atlanta called DevNexus. And I work at Azul Systems, and we make Java virtual machines. We have a high-performance JVM that gives a tremendous boost to almost any Java application. Then we have a great new tool called Code Inventory, which helps you find dead code. And the best thing about finding dead code is removing dead code. So come check that out or ask me after the presentation. I think the booth may still be open for a bit afterwards, so you can come up there and find me there too. Okay? So start with a couple of quick questions. Who's using AI assistance for coding? Let's see. Wow, that's everybody. That's kind of what you would expect, right? Now, how many people use AI to do vibe coding? How many people are vibe coders? Okay, so a few people. So whether or not you're vibe coding or you're using code assistance or whatever, actually it's a good question. How many people use, speaking of AI assistance, how many people are using Claude Code for work stuff? Okay. Gemini for code stuff? Okay. Let's see, what else is there? There's ChatGPT. Okay, not as many, a few people. All right, anybody using anything different than that? Cursor, yeah, okay, Cursor's good. Okay, cool, I was just interested. So, one of the challenges, as you know, with using any of these code assistants or vibe coding or whatever, is that sometimes it can produce bad code. Not just bad Java code, but bad code in general. Or it can give you bad architecture, bad design, and other things like that. So I thought it would be fun to look at some ways that I've encountered I've gotten bad code, and what I've done to fix it, manually, of course, because thankfully we still need a human in the loop to make sure that the code we write is good. Now, before I get into this, I will give you a warning that some of the examples I'm going to give are around code optimizations, but because the JVM is so good at optimizing code, a lot of times you don't have to obsess about these low-level optimizations for your code to make it run faster. I'll talk a little bit about that for a few minutes, but and also point out some examples where having the JIT compiler in the Java virtual machine just optimize the code for you can save you a lot of time and headache. Okay? So let's start off with a fairly easy one around string optimization. So I have two code blocks here. The first one is inefficient, where what we're doing is we're doing some straight string concatenation. Now, the problem with doing this, if you're not familiar with it already, is that whenever you create a string, strings are immutable. So in this case, we're creating 1, 2, 3, well, 1, 2, let's count like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strings, and then finally a 7th string where you add everything together, right? So you create a lot of strings here, and the problem with creating strings in Java or any programming language for that matter is that when you do this, it creates a lot of garbage, right? So that garbage has to be collected, and it's very slow. So what we prefer to do is what we have on the second code block here, where we use a string builder, and you go and append these things like so. You're still creating a couple of strings here by having this and having this and having this here, but it's way much more efficient than what we have on the talk block. Okay, so, and you can see that in the middle part here, I have a little bit of a code hint as to exactly how slow this is. If you are familiar with big O notation, this is big O of n to n squared, which is actually adding quite a bit of overhead and a lot of memory to it. Okay, so remember, strings are immutable in Java, so frequent modifications create many temporary objects, leading to performance bottlenecks. Okay, so this unfortunately is not something that the JIT compiler can readily take care of, so you have to be careful about this. Now, you may be asking yourself, okay, so I use a lot of strings when I code, or if you're using a code assistant, it may drop some code for you into your coding session, and you need to figure out, well, what's the best strategy around working with strings? And again, this is something you do have to kind of worry about, right? So I put together this little handy diagram, and of course, we'll make the slides available so that you can reference this later. But here's essentially a synopsis of how I think about when to use strings, And I don't normally worry about thread safety too much, but in case you are worried about thread safety, you can see that string builder is not thread safe, but it has the highest level of performance. But again, it depends on what kind of application you're writing. If you're writing concurrent apps, something you need to be careful of. But if not, you have a good idea of some different options that you have when building strings. Okay, so one of the great things about the way that we code nowadays is I'm actually going to print this T-shirt and start wearing it to conferences to see what people think about it, right? I don't normally test, but when I do test, I test on production. So especially in this age of using code assistants and maybe even vibe coding and application, tests become even more important. I have a friend who has a booth here at Kodo. They do automated code reviews, so it's great to have somebody be your code review partner with some tools like that. And there are obviously tools out there to write code, to write tests specifically. I don't use a lot of those tools to write tests, but I do like having AI review my code. So we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. But let's go back to another example of something I saw recently when I was doing a little bit of AI-assisted coding, right? So here we, at the top, we have an order object, and I want to get the city that the customer is in. Of course, in Java, you want to do all these null checks to make sure that it doesn't blow up and throw a null pointer exception. So the AI generated this little I call it the pyramid of doom, okay? This code right here that looks very ugly and is very verbose, and I don't know what the performance of it's like, but probably not that great, right? But what we can use nowadays with newer versions of Java is what we have at the bottom. We can use the optional .ofNullable, and it will go and you essentially pass it a map. So if you look at this visually, you can see that it's much easier to read, and because it's easier to read, it makes a lot more sense, and of course, easy to maintain and refactor. So this is actually something I've gotten out of an AI assistant when I've told it, hey, I want to make sure that when you go and get the city from the address object, which is in the customer object, make sure that it's not null and it doesn't blow up. And it actually spit this code out. I had to go and fix it, and this is the technique I used to fix it. Okay? So let's look at a couple of different things. So I've actually seen some AI code assistants will mix the way that it handles integers, capital I integers, lowercase ints, with boxing and unboxing. Now, the problem with the code at the top is that you're basically doing, well, you can see the hint there. You're unboxing integer to an int, then you're doing an addition, and then you're boxing it to a double. So this adds quite a bit of overhead into your code. So there are a couple of different ways that I fix this, or you can fix it. One of them is that you do a single unbox, as you see here in the middle example, right? So you do sum plus equals number.getI, and you're doing a single unbox, and then you return the double right here, like so. Okay, so that's one way to do it. And the other way is that you can do it with streams also, so it's optimized internally within the stream. You can basically map the int, and you can see here's where the unboxing happens. We take the average or else and return something around this. Okay, so the key to the story here is that when you have something like a loop, you want to try to avoid doing boxing and unboxing because it does require an extra operation to do that, and that can cause a performance problem. Now, this is something that the JIT can typically also take care of for you. After it's seen this code multiple times, it will say, you know what, I can probably make it look like this instead of, well, make it look, sorry, I can make it look like this, but I find that this is easier to read for long-term maintainability. Okay? All right, and everyone loves regular expressions. This is another T-shirt I'm going to wear to conferences because I don't know about you, but my brain has never understood regular expressions, but they are very useful, obviously, when you're doing stuff. And of course, your code editor may spit out something like this, or sorry, your code assistant may spit out something like this, where you can see that the issue here is that we compile the regex in every iteration. Sorry, let's do this. We compile the regular expression in every iteration, right? So the problem with this specific code block is that when I was doing some coding with an AI assistant, it put this in the middle of this loop. And of course, the issue here is that every time that you run inside the loop, it will compile the regular expression, which is in the string right here, and that is a very expensive operation. Okay, so what you would prefer to do is compile the regular expression once, like so, and then use it wherever you need to use it inside of the code further from there. And you can see that this is a private static final, because typically you don't dynamically generate regular expressions. You come up with the regex, you spend a few hours making sure it works. I'm joking, of course. You come up with the regex, and then you use it, and you don't typically change it, so having it as a private static final is perfectly fine, right? So the moral of the story here is compile the pattern only once so that you don't have to compile it over and over, because compiling regular expressions is very expensive. All right, so just a few more since we don't have a lot of time. This is called the minimize method calls inside loops. And so you'll see this again. If you're writing code by hand, you might make this mistake manually in your own brain, but when you're using an AI assistant, sometimes it will write code like this for you, where it will have some kind of method which is called inside of a loop a large number of times, like so, right? So here's our compute, and then we're calling this. Now, you might think, well, this is a small method. It's probably fine to just call that method over and over again. But the problem is if you're worried about performance, or if performance is something that you're concerned about, is that every time that you call a method, what happens is the method gets put on the stack, a little bit of memory is allocated to track that thing on the stack, and then once it pops off the stack, that thing needs to be removed from the temporary memory between the parent method and the child method, and it creates an extra step. And of course, the JVM is very fast, but if you do this many thousands or millions of times, all of that adds up, right? So what we prefer to do is the code on the right, where we inline the method like so. We say, okay, this is a fairly simple method, so let's just put it inline into the place where it's going to be called over and over, so that, again, we don't put that method on the stack, we call it, and then we return it. Of course, that takes a little bit of memory, and it takes a little bit of CPU, but if you call it over and over, if it's in a critical code path, it can become a little bit of a bottleneck, but all those bottlenecks add up. Okay? Now, earlier I did say that a lot of times you don't have to worry about things like this. And this specific example is something that the JIT compiler will actually take for you and optimize for you. This is a technique called method inlining. Okay? So the JIT will apply an optimization called method inlining that does the above for you. And again, an example of let the JVM JIT do the optimization for you. So something like this you don't really have to worry about too much, because after running this a few hundred or a few thousand times, the JIT compiler will recognize that you're just calling this thing over and over again. So it will just take that bytecode and put it into the place where it's being called, so you no longer are calling a method to go and do this. It will just take that bytecode and inject it directly into the place where it's being repeatedly called, i.e. it does the method inlining for you rather than you having to do it manually. Okay? So I think we got time for a couple more here. All right, so this is another one called moving invariant code outside. So if we look at something like this, this is similar to what we were talking about before with method calls. So instead of having this compute function inside of the loop, we take it outside and we initialize it to a variable, because it's not changing as far as we can tell when we write this code. So again, this is also something the JIT will optimize for us. Okay, so I don't want to get too much into the synchronization part, because that goes a little bit too deep, but we'll talk about this very quickly and we should be all set. Hopefully not a lot of you have to spend too much time writing code that is concurrent. There are obviously lots of different ways to do it, especially in newer versions of Java. But we try to avoid unnecessary synchronization as possible. So here are some examples. The first one on the top left is synchronizing an entire method for a simple increment or something simple operation can lock everything and lock that specific thread that's working on it if you're not careful. It's better to only synchronize the specific part of the code where you need the synchronization. But you can also do a couple of different ways to do this. You can use different classes like atomic integer, which have thread safety and allow you to write code that is thread safe. Okay, so we're at the end of time, and I believe I'm in the room where the keynote is happening, so I must finish on time, otherwise I would show you more examples. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed this lightning talk on this, and I don't know if the booth is open or not, but I'll be around to chat more about Java performance and anything JVM. So thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed the quick session.